Smith, to be followed by Humza Yousaf.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'm grateful to be called in this debate and to follow the previous speakers, particularly Linda Fabiani, who, if I may say so, actually I thought made an impassioned case on the reasons why she believes what she believes. And if only the First Minister had come here today, then we might have had a slightly better tone to this debate if he had followed suit. But I want to say at the outset that I respect the position of the SNP on independence for Scotland, even if I disagree with it. It is a legitimate case to argue for a separate Scotland, and I have no fear that a Scotland outside the United Kingdom would not be able to survive. I simply take the view that a Scotland working in partnership with our neighbours could be even more successful. But I said that it is legitimate for separatists to argue their case, but it must be I've only just begun, John, so if you'll forgive me. I said that it is legitimate for the separatists to argue their case, but it must be argued. It cannot simply be asserted, as we have heard again at lunchtime today and in this debate. There are serious questions which those who promote the change must be able and prepared to argue, and so far we have seen precious little attempt to do so. The celebrities at the cinema were not keen to answer questions about what independence might mean for Scotland, and as Joanne Lamont said on TV just a few days ago, the Deputy First Minister was unable to answer more questions. Just yesterday, the SNP in this chamber were unable to answer basic questions about how Scotland might have weathered the current Euro crisis. So it is perhaps one benefit of putting the proposed referendum off that the Scottish Government will have a long time to think about and cobble together some answers to those questions, because the people of Scotland are already asking them, and I'm afraid for SNP backbenchers, the questions are going to keep coming from the people of Scotland. I do think that the delaying of the referendum is a shame, but I also welcome that I and other
Mark MacDonald.
I respect the fact that there will be a need for parties to lay out their policy agenda for what they would do as the government of an independent Scotland. When will the Labour Party start to do that, or do they not believe that they will ever govern in an independent Scotland?
Drew Smith.
I really don't intend to stand and set out the policy priorities of the Labour Party and independent Scotland, which I do not believe is going to come into existence. I mean, the argument that it is incumbent upon us to argue for what we would do after something that we don't believe in comes to pass is just completely illogical. And I do appeal to SNP members to grow up and to take this debate slightly more seriously. I do think the delaying of the referendum is a shame, but I also welcome the fact that I and other members elected last year will be in the first generation of members of this Parliament who can look forward to a clear answer to the constitutional question one way or another. Now, all of my life, support for a separate Scotland has hovered at around a third, while support for the SNP has fluctuated. So I don't think that it is very likely that Scotland will choose to leave the United Kingdom, but I don't take that for granted, and we will have to wait and see. However, given my lack of faith in the SNP's prospects, at least not on the strength of their current arguments or assertions, I do think there is an opportunity to ensure that a rejection of separation is not just a negative result for the SNP. I would prefer to carry on at present, please, Mr Hepburn. This debate and the eventual referendum could be an opportunity for Scots to affirm our place in Britain. Given that ordinary people in this country were not asked by the previous Scots Parliament, of which the First Minister is so fond, for their views on the Treaty of Union, the debate could just as much be an opportunity for Scots to democratically join the Union rather than leave it. The Britain of 2012 and of 2014 is a different place to that which was created in 1707. Just as the Scotland of today is a different place to the Scotland of 1999. I was a schoolboy when this place was created. All of my adult life, this place has existed and taken decisions, some good and some bad, but decisions taken for Scotland here in Scotland. The Union of today recognises the will of the Scottish people for a Parliament of their own. Home rule within the Union is, in my view, the best of both worlds. Devolution has allowed people who live in Scotland, who, as the First Minister puts it, care most about Scotland, to take decisions. This place has led the UK with action on land reform, on smoking, free tuition, on protecting our NHS from marketisation, on concessionary travel, on personal care, opening railways, creating a national theatre. And to pretend that this Parliament is impotent is to do down all of those achievements. I am proud of devolution and of the role that my party played in delivering it. But I do not think that we on this side should or can sit back. I welcome a debate about powers for this Parliament. The modern call for a Scottish Parliament came out of UCS, the destruction of industries like coal and steel and the communities that relied upon them. It was as much about factory closures in the 80s and 90s and the campaigning of the labour movement as it was emotional or cultural nationalism. It is true that the world has turned many times since those issues dominated debate in Scotland, but as someone whose school playground was in the shadow of a shut pit, the story of devolution is not, in my view, finished. The Glasgow I represent today is an uncertain place for many, and it may be that changes in who does what are needed in the future. But much more important is not the question of who does what, but rather what is to be done. And it is this debate that is distracting us from those questions, although I completely recognise that the SNP have a mandate to put this question. But there is a frustration in Scotland, and there is going to be a continued sense of frustration amongst the people of Scotland, and the SNP are going to need to accept that.
Please come to a conclusion.
Of course, Presiding Officer. The convention scheme that created this place was well worked out and understood, and a Scottish Parliament with tax powers was voted for by the people. In contrast, the separation case is vague and often vain. The reality is that we can share power and devolve it from Holyrood as well as to it.
I'm afraid you must finish.
I'm sorry, Presiding Officer. In my view, the campaign for Britain is a positive one, and it is one which I believe we will win.
Thank you very much.